Thanks very much. I am here with Matthias Muschnick, founder and CEO of the plant-based food company Notco, valued at $1.5 billion. Matthias is drawing on deep science and AI to rethink the future of food, and I am so looking forward to this conversation. Matthias, hello.
Hi, Amanda. How are you?
I am great. How are you?
Very well, very well. Thank you for having me here.
Well, I'm really pleased to get to chat with you. And I want to start with your origins, which are very interesting. You started this company in Chile. Can you take us back to the beginning?
Sure. It's not just Chile, the curveball, but probably, I'm a finance major. So I'm not coming from, a science side of food or anything else. I was just passionate about food. I really saw, and this is connecting to the Notco story, I saw the food industry very similar to what I saw the finance industry back in 2008. Big companies selling overly complex products to consumers that were totally disconnected to what they were buying, and where regulators became the regulated. So maybe that aspect of finance really helped me to, discover how the food system was completely broken and how we were going to able to solve it only if we created a technology and a science that was different, that elevated the food industry, because quite frankly, for the last 50 years, we've been operated by a very obsolete technology and science behind one of the most important aspects for our species, which is food, right?
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of the context on the why, right?
Well, yeah, and I want to know more about that secret sauce that you are drawing on in your technology applications. What are you doing? How are you drawing on algorithms and new tech applications to find plant-based formulations that are original and exciting in this space?
Yeah, the creation of IP in this subject is really, really important and relevant for us. And also, I go back to the origins. I mean, when we started this with Karim and Pablo, we decided to really create a tech that would allow us to produce food products faster, better, more accurate, and less costly than anyone else in the space. We saw a whole generation wanting to understand where their foods came from and how and what are we doing to really offset this world of food, which was becoming the common denominator to every major environmental ill known to humankind.
Yeah.
And so when we said kind of like let's disrupt this industry, we said what is the biggest problem? And the biggest problem was food R&D. R&D was three guys in a lab coat in an experimental kitchen doing trial and error and reading research papers of 1970s on how to apply soy to replace animal-based ingredients. That was it, right? So what we did was let's understand the food that we eat first, because we don't understand it. Then let's understand the thousands and thousands plants in this world that we have no idea what they can do. And let's create an algorithm that would allow us to predict which combination of plant-based ingredients should result in the same sensorial experience as a target product. We already, as human beings, we love what we eat, and we know how to consume it and when to consume it. So we have a behavior that can't be changed. The way we needed to change everything is, how do we create the things that we love to eat? And that's where we discovered that if you ask science, the best way to do it was taking the animal out of the equation and create the same, but with plants. So, yeah.
So interesting. So the end product is the same. You want it to taste very much like the animal-derived product or identical to it, but with very different means of production.
100%. And actually, if we can elevate that, fantastic. Let's do it.
So take me through some of your products and how you went from one product to many.
Okay. So the journey started with mayo. So I'm from Chile. We're the third biggest mayo consumers in the world per capita. It is a gross fun fact, but it is a fun fact. We eat absolutely everything with mayo. So we launched mayo first. Not Mayo launched March 2017 in Jumbo stores, which is like Whole Foods of Chile. Yeah. And we acquired 7% of market share in only 10 months of sales.
Amazing.
And that was kind of like the first success case for Notco. Actually, we were, in exactly that time, we were actually in IndieBio, being accelerated. So quite interesting. We got from mayo to milk to ice cream to burgers to chicken in Chile, Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, the US, and Canada. We've made that in the last 4 years. As I said, I think we cracked the code when it comes to technology, creating an elevated way of creating R&D and solving problems in the food industry, utilizing algorithms, but most importantly, creating a general purpose artificial intelligence that helps us bring this to scale, to mass market.
Yeah.
And this is an element that I'm sure that you're going to be questioning. So I'll let you go.
Well, I mean, I'm very curious about market adoption throughout Latin America. Certainly in the U.S., there's a lot of concerns about the declining sales of plant-based products. Certainly a lot of concerns around the Beyond Meat stock performance. So, can you address this sort of elephant in the room in our discussion? Real skepticism around the kind of success and future of plant-based products.
It's very interesting, and the market can only read the numbers of Beyond, right? Beyond is a great company that allowed, I think, everyone else to focus on what's important and how to do things. So, more than just talk about Beyond, I'll talk a little bit about the industry. I think the first and most important factor that we need to realize is that plant-based is still the Ivy League of products and foods, right? It's very premium. It's very niche in that premium sector of every country. And therefore, as we are subject to a macroeconomic downfall, of course, the most affected products are going to be the most expensive products, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, there's a lot of, a macroeconomic context, being affecting this element of growth. So let's say, this is a great factor, but it's not the only one.
Yeah.
The second factor, I think, it has to do with IP as well, right? And IP is very important because at the end of the day, there's an oversaturation in many of the categories because you end up having Me Too companies. And when you have Me Too companies, you don't have value propositions to really stand out to make the category grow.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think, especially, maybe Beyond or maybe the others that are publicly, kind of like, you can watch their figures. They're missing an element of technology in IP. And that's why Notco is really different from all of these companies. But then let me go to the third point, which is, the third point is a blame on us. It's a blame on the industry. I think we've stopped being effective at communicating.
Interesting.
I think we've been, lacking. We've been lazy at communicating what the value prop of our companies actually is. So there's three factors, probably overweight on the first, factor that I just said, which was the macroeconomic, environment. But we need to make something about it. So we need to make a more democratic industry. We need to make this way better communicated. And we need to create IP behind what we do. So those three are the elements that I would just point out that are very important.
Beautifully said. Thank you. That was really helpful. Can you just, in one or two sentences, because we have so much else to tackle, just describe what sets your technology apart and your applications of AI in particular apart from your competitors?
So we have 13 approved patents in the US that relate food science and artificial intelligence and machine learning. We're the first to do that. And the way probably that we thought of this company was first a technology challenge, and then because of what we believe, we'd end up making food, right?
Yeah.
Notco could be a technology that will be applied to other industries as well, right? So Notco as a base has a technology that creates a value or difference, a unique way of creating foods in the food space, but this is applicable to other industries as well. So I would say this tech not only solves the problem of food formulation, it solves other real problems, right? And it has to do with supply chain, for example. You have no idea how much time food scientists actually spend on changing formulations because now they're missing one of the ingredients of the company's formula.
Right.
Even changing a supplier changes everything. It's a multi-dimensional problem. It's a non-linear problem. We need to change a supplier of a specific ingredient, and that takes ages. I would say years. And for us, that's an element that we can solve in a matter of months. So what we do is probably the same as the rest, but accelerated and in a way that is way, way more efficient and profitable.
Interesting. And I can't wait to taste the results of this. Can we also address the tailwinds, right? Because, I mean, overall demand for alternative proteins has been growing pretty dramatically in recent years. And I think you certainly believe that it will continue to grow significantly going forward. Food and ag is the largest investment category, third largest investment category after transportation, and catching up on energy. Proteins are number one in food and ag. So talk to us about just how significant the opportunity is here.
I mean, the opportunity is massive. I think it's a $1 trillion industry. And especially for us, because I can a little bit talk about Notco in the sense that, yes, we are in the food industry. We might be also, in a couple of months in, the home care or personal care industry, right? Because we invented something that, disrupts R&D and not just the food side. But, let's say that we stayed in food. We just announced a joint venture with Kraft Heinz, right? We are going to be the developers of all of the plant-based versions of their brands, right? And that's a very important element because Notco, from starting from a narrative of the not products, not milk, not mayo, not ice cream, not burgers, is now being the Intel inside of other companies, allowing them to change, hopping on this incredible capabilities of commercialization, distribution, accessing the mass market, where the familiarity of the brand is amazingly big. You can say mac and cheese in everywhere in the world and people will know what it is, right?
Yeah.
And it's a craft product, right? So one of the elements that is very important that we need to make sure that we don't forget is the effect we have in climate change, is the moving the needle aspect. And there's a lot of romantic speeches out there, but the reality is that in order to move the needle of sustainability, you need to access the mass market. And you're not going to do that if you don't have a democratic product, if you don't have a plant-based product that can penetrate the mass market. And that's why Notco is now becoming this Intel inside of food, which is pretty remarkable and interesting.
Yeah, so interesting. And especially when you consider climate pressures on conventional food production going forward, it's going to be a lot more expensive to do food the old way, right? So even though we've been thinking about this space as, a place, where consumers have to pay a green premium for products like yours, over time, and probably not too far from now, we're likely to see a green discount with alternative proteins and plant-based products, right? Because they're going to be a lot cheaper to produce as it becomes more and more costly environmentally and from a climate standpoint to produce animal-based products. Do you agree with that? And can you sort of talk me through that?
Oh, yeah. We don't compete in a fair game. Let's say it, right? I mean, the subsidies that the traditional animal industry enjoy of is absolutely vast and massive, right? So even pricing our products in the same realm than what we compete with is very hard for us, right? Yeah. And it takes a toll on margins, and you see that in Beyond. I mean, you see a company that cannot get over the 30% realm of gross margins when the other companies get to 50-60% of gross margins. And that's why Beyond is being valued at $1 billion, because it became the same as a CPG company. And there's not an aspect of technology being valued, or there's not an aspect of R&D being valued there. And that's a mistake, but again, I think governments and regulators need to do something about it, because the hidden cost of animal farming today is absolutely massive. Yeah. So we cannot compete either to make this a better world, which is absurd, because we're offering products that are better for the world and better for human beings at the same time. That will make the government spend less money in, healthcare. Yeah. But something is going wrong there. That is, this message is not getting across really well. So we need more and better marketeers doing all of this.
Yeah, and speaking of government, what role can the USDA and other, government agencies do to help you maintain competitive edge in this increasingly competitive industry?
Well, I've never been a great fan of getting governments involved in business. They're really bad at doing that. We should definitely be better at it. And but if we have to point any fingers, is let's try to make a competitive market. Let's lower the subsidies. Let's start charging for contamination. Let's start charging for CO2 emissions. Let's start charging for land use. You know what I mean? Like let's have a fair game, because in a fair game, plant-based and sustainable foods actually win.
Interesting. So carbon pricing could be one of the most important accelerators for your industry. And of course, and we have certainly seen incentives for better and better land use and regenerative practices in many of the plant-based products that or ingredients that would go into your products.
Yeah, and again, maybe I'm politically very incorrect, but we're fighting an unfair game, right? To say the least. To me, it's not about a marketing thing, and generally companies tend to take this, kind of like these rules very flexible, and they would just promote their product of like free range. What does free range actually means, right? What is grass fed? What literally there's many marketing schemes that are helping these big companies avoid certain things that are very important, not even for the competition between plant-based and animal-based. It's for human beings. So at the end of the day, we should have a better system regulated in a very well manner, and not just kind of like marketing schemes everywhere to make us feel better.
Well, and it's not just the problem that consumers don't see the advantages. In fact, some of the marketing and or the sort of research I've read is that consumers are actually distorted in their understanding that there could be real costs, human health costs, and even environmental costs to plant-based products, which is pretty amazing in this moment.
This is not the first time in history we face these things. There's an animal industry that markets incredibly well. They are great communicators, and they have deep pockets, right? And great influences and stuff. And I'm not a conspiracy theory guy at all, right? Yeah. But it's the most, I would say, the most effective way of fighting the plant-based industry for animal-based companies was definitely to say, the overly processed products. I mean, come on. Right. If we analyze chemically, both of the products probably they contain exactly the same, but they don't talk about healthiness. And healthiness, when they talk about it, they talk about the ingredient fact label, which is the simplest form of saying if something is healthy or not. Why don't we talk about inflammatory processes and how animal products are related to heart disease and cancers and all of that. Nobody talks about that. So when we say it's unhealthy, I mean it's a very complex kind of like theme, because everyone says different things, right? But anyway, we need to get that cleared out. We need to understand what healthy actually means, and the FDA could definitely play a big role into this.
And consumers are so emotional about food consumption, much more than they are about, transportation and energy, right? So it's much harder. It's a very different challenge to talk about this and change consumer perceptions in this space than in some of the other climate-related industries. Okay, we only have a few minutes, so I want to hear your advice to other founders and in this space as more and more enter into it. What do they need to know to succeed in this space? And I'd also love to hear what innovations are most necessary to continue improving the products in the plant-based space.
So I would say, if you don't have IP, then do not get into this industry. You need to create IP, because otherwise you're going to become a Me Too company. And that is not only just will ruin your company, is that it's very expensive not to have IP.
Yeah.
So please do not, rethink of coming into this industry if you don't have, a very relevant IP, factor. On the second hand, I would say hire good communicators. The reason why climate change hasn't been that the topic of climate change hasn't been that important or relevant during the last 100 years is because we really had scientists portraying the consequences of climate change. And we need good marketeers. We need communicators. We need to understand what humans actually want to hear. And so, a good marketeer, a good storyline, and a good purpose, obviously, is very, very important for everyone that is getting into this industry.
And in terms of kind of key areas of innovation, final words on just what you'd like to see emerge. And I know that's what you're working on, is building and innovating. But are there kind of crucial blind spots so far in how to optimize these products, how to get them to the place they need to be to actually disrupt animal-based products?
Yeah, I would say there's a combination of things. One would be more technology in ingredients. I think we've done not a great job at understanding how to create plant-based ingredients that actually can, replace milk or the casein or very individual elements that we need in order to create the products to compete neck to neck to what we're trying to replace. So more technology in the ingredient space, it's absolutely key. And the second, which ingredient companies will tell you, is that they don't have the capabilities of creating all of this. They don't have the bioreactors. They don't have the access to scaling, ingredients. So I would say, and I've seen it, especially in the precision fermentation space, there is not enough capacity to really create the ingredients that they need, right? So I would say people to invest in capability and capex, so we can give this world a chance of surviving in the next 50 years.
Yeah. All right, Matthias, what a pleasure to connect with you. Thank you so much. I can't wait to watch what you're doing in the months and years ahead. And take care and good luck.
Thank you. You too.